Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. All right, hello, and thank you for tuning into today's show. On today's show, we're going to continue to use the show's namesake to break down the Word of God. I hope that after another application of the method, you will be well on your way to allowing the Word of God to not just be read by you, but permeate throughout your heart, soul, and mind.
On today's show, we're going to have a completely different focus. It is a prelude on a series to come on the wisdom of keeping God's command. The intro to the series was inspired by Ecclesiastes 12:1 and 12:13, and the dreams in Daniel 2:7. It is also being kicked off with a new spoken word poem that, as usual, focuses on the series theme. I hope that after the series is over, you will be well on your way to allowing the Word of God to not just enter your mind, but permeate throughout your heart, spirit, and soul. Okay, let's begin. From observation to meditation. Ecclesiastes 12:1. Remember now your Creator in the days of your youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when you shall say, I have no pleasure in them. Let us hear the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Now that was 12:13. So we did 12:1 and 12:13. So those particular verses will be a focus in the upcoming series. Now let me get into the Daniel verses. Now these verses focus on the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had in Daniel chapter 2, and a similar dream, but from God's perspective, that Daniel had in Daniel chapter 7. So I'm going to read the verses as they are, and this is actually the easy-to-read version because I review these episodes with my two boys, which are 8 and 12, so I like to keep it easier to understand. So let's start with Daniel 2:36. That was your dream. Now we will tell the king what it means. King, you are the most important king. The God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. He has given you control, and you rule over people and the wild animals and the birds. Wherever they live, God has made you ruler over them all. King Nebuchadnezzar, you are the head of gold on the statue. Another kingdom will come after you, but it will not be as great as your kingdom. Next, a third kingdom will rule over the earth. That is the bronze part. Then there will be a fourth kingdom. That kingdom will be strong like iron. Just as iron breaks things and smashes them to pieces, that fourth kingdom will break all the other kingdoms and smash them to pieces. You saw that the feet and toes of the statue were partly clay and partly iron. That means the fourth kingdom will be a divided kingdom. It will have some of the strength of iron, and just as you saw in the iron mixed with clay, the toes of the statue were partly iron and partly clay. So the fourth kingdom would be partly strong like iron and partly weak like clay. You saw the iron mixed with clay, but the iron and clay don't completely mix together. In the same way, the people of the fourth kingdom will be a mixture. They will not be united as one people. During the time of the kings of the fourth kingdom, the God of heaven will set up another kingdom that will continue forever. It will never be destroyed, and it will be the kind of kingdom that cannot be passed on to another group of people. This kingdom will crush all the other kingdoms. It will bring them to end, but that kingdom itself will continue forever. King Nebuchadnezzar, you saw a rock cut from a mountain, but no one cut the rock out of the mountain. It was made without human hands. The rock broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces. In this way, God showed you what will happen in the future. The dream is true, and you can trust that this is what it means. All right, so that was Daniel chapter 2, verses 36 through 45. And now we're going to do Daniel chapter 7, verses 1 through 12. Now, this is essentially also another dream, but this was Daniel's dream, whereas the other dream was Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and Daniel was interpreting it for him. But it's the same scenery. So in Daniel chapter 7 and 1, it reads, During the first year that Belshazzar was king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream. He saw these visions while he was lying in his bed, and he wrote what he had dreamed. Daniel said, I saw my vision at night. In the vision, the wind was blowing from all four directions. These winds made the sea rough. I saw 4 big animals, and each one was different from the others. These 4 animals came up out of the sea. The first animal looked like a lion, but it had wings like an eagle. As I watched, the wings were torn off. It was helped up from the ground, and it stood up on 2 feet like a human. Then it was given a human mind. Then I saw another animal there in front of me that looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, get up and eat all the meat you want. After that, I noticed another animal in front of me. It looked like a leopard, but it had 4 wings on its back. This animal had 4 heads. It was given authority to rule. After that, in my vision at night, I looked, and there in front of me was a 4th animal. It looked very cruel and terrifying. It looked very strong, with large iron teeth. This animal crushed and ate its victims and walked in whatever was left of them. This 4th animal was different from all the animals I saw before it. This animal had 10 horns. While I was looking at the horns and thinking about them, another horn grew up among them. This was a little horn with eyes like a human. It also had a mouth that was bragging. Then the little horn pulled out 3 of the other horns. As I was looking, thrones were put in their places, and the ancient king sat on his throne. His clothes were as white as snow. His hair was as white as wool. His throne was made from fire, and its wheels were made from flames. A river of fire flowed out from in front of the ancient king. Millions of people were serving him. Hundreds of millions stood in front of him. Court was ready to begin, and the books were opened. I kept on looking because the little horn was bragging. I kept watching until finally the 4th animal was killed. Its body was destroyed, and it was thrown into the burning fire. The authority and rule of the other animals had been taken from them, but they were permitted to live for a certain period of time. Okay, so that was Daniel chapter 7. Again, I'm using the easy-to-read version because I do review these episodes with my kids, and it would be easier for them to understand. I hope you understood that. Anything that needs to be reconciled, we always ask you. I always talk about using the original language. Sometimes these other versions don't use the word-for-word translation, so you want to take into account the original Hebrew. King James Version usually uses the original Hebrew. You have the Orthodox Jewish versions as well. So whichever is your preference, try to stay as close as the actual words of God as possible. And if you're using something like this, just be able to reconcile it, because oftentimes the interpreter or translator does take liberty based off of what they believe it says, and it may not necessarily be the case. Okay, so now we're going to launch this series, which again is going to get into the meat of it, starting the next episode with the spoken word poem of the day. What are we going to do? Have you read Daniel chapter 2? A dream of a statue with a head of gold and a feet of iron and clay. And we should pray, because iron and clay is all that is left before that great and dreadful day. Without further delay, talmidim need to ask God for guidance and pray. Are you still harboring much leaven? Have you read Daniel chapter 7? Another dream of the same scene. But this time the dreamer's mind was aligned with the divine. Let it not be untold. Daniel did not see gold. He saw a lion, a bear, a leopard, and last but not least, what appeared to be a genetically modified beast. Yes, same dream, same theme, but from the perspective of the winged team. As we watch these events in the latter parts of both dreams unfold, let it not be untold that I also had a dream that borrowed from both of these dreams. A man arrayed in gold and light, boasting in all his ways, words and speech that lasted for days, a smile that could light up the night, and walk that can only be outdone by his confident talk. All the while this man was strutting his style, talking this talk, and walking his walk. A background commentator was giving his own blow-by-blow, commenting on the scene in a way that was meant to demean. But the man acted oblivious to the lamentation, as he appeared to only care about his situation. As I watched the scene, which was in full color and high definition, like on the big screen, I could not help but notice this man's utter disregard. This is how he viewed himself, and he did not care, nor did he appear to fear. For in this man's mind, he was greater than Herod. This man believes he is God. Nevertheless, neither was willing to desist. During the entire dream, both continued to talk, the man being oh so proud and the voice in the cloud. But suddenly the scenery started to change, and this man's face started to rearrange. His bright golden lights and smooth-talking voice started to lose their luster. He started to look more like a hustler. And more, still oblivious to the change, his voice became deeper in its range. Hideous now in looks, but it did not stop his boastful bragging, and anyone that was on his bandwagon was now able to see that they followed the voice of the dragon. Now, as the transformation came to an end, the lamentation focused on the man's apparent delusion, as if to say, how can you be God and this be your conclusion? And you know what is really sad? The man in the dream was my dad. At that time, I did not fully understand the dream. Was I on the wrong team? Was I the seed of a fallen Malachim? A warning or a poke? Perhaps a joke. To my surprise, my dad, the source of all lies? After time, these things started to unwind, and clarity began to take hold, and my mind began to unfold. I now know that the key to this dream is to view it from the perspective of the winning team. Although things are not always as they seem, and dreams are oftentimes just dreams, and since that time, I have not had a dream with such definition, color, and sound. But here's what's profound. That man on the ground can be the father to anyone that rejects that which is sound. Here is what I found. The ultimate duty of man in attaining the gifts of El Elion's plan is to keep his command. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the poem for this week. That is all the time that we have for today. I hope you will tune in to next week as we continue the series.
That is the end of this week's episode. I hope you will tune in next week on From Observation to Meditation. Shalom.